starting at 13. You going to help me out tonight, Mike? Well, you know how it went last week when you, yeah. I don't know, man. Are we on the YouTube yet? Are we on the on live yet? On the okay. What? Yeah. No, I was just wondering if we were on our broadcast, our screen, or our YouTube thing, streaming, or live stream. That's the word I'm trying to think about. I thought I would wait till we make sure we were on that, but it's on. They gave me the thumbs up. So if you're online watching tonight, welcome. Glad you're here. Hope everyone's doing well that's at home. We're praying for all those that are still sick. And hope everybody can keep those folks in their prayers this week, especially my wife who bummed her knee out. So hopefully we can get that resolved this week and see what's going on there. So I'm back by popular demand. No, I mean I'm back here for another week. Yeah, well, thanks. Tonight we're going to finish up the third chapter of James, and what that covers is, if you see, if there's a header in your Bible, it says heavenly versus demonic wisdom, and a good way to really think about that is heavenly wisdom versus earthly wisdom. That sounds better to me. Can you hear me? Yeah, it was a little echoey before. I like this better. Thank you. But yeah, it's really difference between wisdom that we attain here on earth and the wisdom that we gain from the Lord in heaven. I had a PowerPoint made up by my sweet wife, but apparently the file they can't open, so I don't have a PowerPoint after all. Which leads me to a funny story. I interviewed for a job once as an instructor, and they said, bring a PowerPoint and you're going to do it for the interview. So I made my PowerPoint. Well, I didn't know how to make a PowerPoint. And my son, who was in high school, he knew how to make his PowerPoint, so he made my PowerPoint for me. No. I presented the PowerPoint, and at the end, I had this slide with some guy from like the Middle East, like a terrorist dude, but he had a shoulder-fired missile on one shoulder and an umbrella on the other, and I said, see, you should always be prepared. That was my very last slide, and nobody laughed. And I didn't get, and the guy says, so how did it go making your PowerPoint? And I said, I didn't. I had to make my son do it. And he laughed. And then my buddy interviewed for the same job, and they gave him a PowerPoint. You know why they gave him a PowerPoint? Because they said this guy came in, and his son made the PowerPoint. So they just quit that and gave you your own PowerPoint. Is there any chance on that PowerPoint? All right, well, let's get started. Oh, it's there. The last time I made a PowerPoint for one of these, I left it laying on the kitchen counter. And most of my stuff was on that PowerPoint. He's getting me fixed up there. You guys can change the slides if you want. I don't need the clicker. There's not that many. I'm no Andy Garner. But anyway, we'll start out. I'll read you the verses that we're going to cover tonight. James 3:13 through 18. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and and self-seeking in your hearts. Do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. There's a lot of information in there. When I first looked this over, I was like, ooh, that's not a lot of stuff to work with. But when you research it, there actually is a lot of information there. If you notice, who is wise and understanding among you? In verse 1, if you go back to the very, that's not verse 1, that's verse 13, but verse 1 of chapter 3, James says, let not many of you become teachers. And he's kind of gone back to that with who is wise and understanding among you with this question. And just that one simple question leads on to let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. So what he's talking about here, at the beginning of the chapter, he was talking about how teachers have an additional responsibility for their lives and how they live. He's bringing that back up here, and he's talking about how we have a living wisdom now. And this living wisdom is shown by how we live our lives. What's my next thought here? If I can just get this started. When you look at somebody and say, hey, that person has, how do you tell if somebody has a lot of wisdom? By the wrinkles in their forehead, like you keep that hand? Anybody? What would you judge wisdom by? Just straight out knowledge? No. Basically what James is telling you, it's shown by how we live. A person who is wise and understanding is considered to be by some to be a teacher. And we're supposed to show this through our good conduct, through meekness and wisdom. That's what heavenly wisdom is all about versus earthly wisdom. When you get into earthly wisdom, you think of people you think somebody's smart, because they make a lot of money. They know how to game the system, all kind of cheat their way through life. And you think, wow, that guy, he's on it. He knows how to get through life. But what kind of wisdom is that? It's earthly wisdom. It's not.
Earthly wisdom tends to focus on self-ambition and inward rather than outward.
Have you read this? Have you read my notes? Yeah, that's exactly. It focuses on inwardly rather than outwardly, and that's what I will get to here in just one second. Thank you. Some people think they can get through life with bad conduct, and some people get a long way with bad conduct. But deep down that that's not how we want to live. We want to live with the way God would prefer us to live. Those who do good works and show attention to themselves lack true wisdom. Just what you just said. If it's all about us, we lack true wisdom. We need to be looking outward to other people. We'll get on to that. Verse 14 through 16. But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil are there. And this is the opposite of what James says in the last verse. This wisdom is not wisdom at all. It's earthly, sensual, and demonic. One of the commentators that I used to research all this is Adam Clark. And give me the next slide. There we go. I've got the earthly, sensual, and demonic up there. And Adam Clark defines earthly as having this life only in view. But we don't have that. We want to look on beyond this life and plan for our next life. So I'm sure you know lots of people that aren't what we would call a Christian, and they just live for today. They have fun, and they have issues in their lives. We all know those kind of people. It measures success in worldly terms, and its aims are worldly aims. Sensual. It's an animalistic having for its object the gratification, the passions, and animal properties. James is saying this is the wrong kind of wisdom. It's no more than the animal kind of thing, and the kind of wisdom that makes an animal snap and snarl, and with no thought other than catching prey or defending itself.
Some translations have the word natural rather than sensual.
Well, with the animalistic. And thirdly, we have demonic, inspired by demons, maintained in their soul by their indwelling influence. So a lot of these wisdoms, earthly wisdoms, are demonic and from the devil, and I'm sure you understand that. There's plenty of instances in the Bible when people listen to the devil versus God. You know, if you think about like the Tower of Babel and Lot, and probably the biggest one is Adam and Eve. They listened to the snake, the serpent, who was the devil, and look what happened to them. Just like it says in that verse, all evil things. Well, that's what they gained. Its source is not God, but the devil. It produces the kind of situation that the devil delights in, not God. It's within the interest of demonic spirits to promote this kind of earthly wisdom. It's a dead wisdom. What's the result of this wisdom? Now, we talked about that just a little bit, but it's also described in verse 16. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and everything are there. That's what I was trying to think of just a second ago. Yeah, you think of all these examples in the Bible, and then you think of people in real life that are considered wise by worldly aspects. You know, if you watch any of those, I don't watch. Flipping around, you see these shows about celebrities and all that, and athletes with all this money and fame. What do they really have? They got a lot of problems. That's why they're on these TV shows. That's why I just click to the next one usually. But that's something to think about. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. The most notable thing that this brings is disorder. Instead of bringing people together, it drives them apart. Confusion and every evil thing. The vast majority of the world lives on this earthly dead wisdom. If you look at people's lives, other countries or our country, all the crises that we have, all the problems in people's lives, where do those come from? Earthly, or they don't come from God's wisdom. And that's something we talk about quite a bit, how God's been taken out of everything in our country, and I think we've gone to earthly wisdom versus heavenly wisdom, and now we're in the situations we're in. A lot of people are in situations that they're in. I mean, you just look around at people in this church. We have our issues, but rarely are they caused by worldly wisdom that we think's right. You know, I have friends and they're always telling me, oh, you know, I got this problem and that problem and this and that, and I was like, well, you know, you do all these different kind of things. You know, you go out, you party, you do this, do that, you know, and then you complain about not having any money because you spend it all at a bar. Met some crazy woman that's causing you issues now. And it's probably a bad thing to say here. I'm sorry. They just came into my head. I'm supposed to stay on the script. Yes. True. Yeah, I don't know if you could hear that online or in here, but I'll just paraphrase. Ken said, when we as Christians have problems, a lot of times it's because we went away from God and what He told us to do and went to worldly wisdoms and thought we were smarter for a while. And we usually find out we're not. Well, that's true. That's what I mean. Yeah, we've kicked Him out, and everybody thinks that politicians and celebrities are wise now, and athletes, pro athletes. Everybody thinks somebody on TV is wise, when in reality, you know, I mean, I don't know why they think that. I guess maybe they should sit down and read this chapter. Yeah. Earthly wisdom, it can make you money, it can make you famous, but like I said before, with that comes confusion and everything evil, just like James says in here. On to, yes, perfect. You guys are mind readers back there. You're like Google. You know how when you type in Google like 2 letters and it says what you were thinking? How does it do that? The wisdom that is from a, what? Google's wise? That's good. Never thought of that. Google is wise. I know. That's a joke for everybody. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. That's the last 2 verses in the chapter, and I've broken that down by each thing there. The first thing he says is pure. Pure and without sin. And my research says that's a mind with holy thoughts. Obviously, you know, we know what pure thoughts are, and to be pure. Peaceable. The absence of conflict. The true wisdom produces good relationships. There's a kind of wisdom that separates man from man and which makes a man look at others with superior contempt. That's not good. There's a cruel kind of wisdom that delights in hurting others with clever and cutting words. And there's a kind of wisdom that seduces men away from their loyalty to God. But the true wisdom at all times brings men closer together and closer to the Lord. Gentleness. I forget the guy's name in the commentary I read, but that's irrelevant. But I thought this was good. His definition of gentleness was sweet reasonableness. And then the ability to extend to others the kindly consideration we would wish to receive ourselves. Just like in Matthew, do it to others as you would have them do unto you. And you go to the next slide. There we go. Willing to yield. Easy. That's easy to persuade. I've got some good notes on that. Willing to yield or easy to persuade does not mean weak or pliable, but in the sense of not being stubborn and being willing to listen, to reason, and to appeal. We are often, what's the matter, Ken? Are you giving me a funny look back there? You're just staring at, oh. I thought you were going, no, that ain't right. Okay, thanks. Just checking. A lot of times, Ken and Andy and Perry and I are in meetings with each other and with people that come in and want to talk to us, and we listen to each other. Somebody has an idea. Hey, let's do this. Let's change this around. Let's try that. And we can't just sit there and say, no, we're not going to do that. As long as it's biblically sound. We hear each other out. We hear people out that come in and sit down and talk to us, listen to everything they say, and then we try to make a wise decision based on that. It may be different from what we were originally. It just happened recently. We had our minds made up about something, and somebody came in and talked to us, and when they left, we were completely changed. We were blown away. Galatians 5 is what he's referring to if you're not hearing him. Yeah. I should have had that in here. But thank you. Thank you for that input. So some things we should not yield to. The gospel and integrity of the scriptures, our morality, and God's commands on how we live. We're not going to yield to that. But there are things in life that just aren't worth, that need to be listened to, and you can change your mind. Things that aren't matter of Scripture, you should be willing to yield. Bottom line is we should not be so stubborn, and not being stubborn is a mark of heavenly wisdom. The next one is that the same? Hang on here. Full of mercy. No, go back. There we go. I'm still on these points here. Full of mercy. I just lost my place. Pity for the man who is suffering unjustly is what I found on that. Christian mercy is more than that. Pity for someone that's suffering unjustly. It's mercy for the man that's in trouble, even if the trouble is his own fault. Christian mercy is a reflection of God's mercy. The pity and mercy that went out to men who were not only suffering unjustly, but when they were suffering through their own fault. And there's examples of that. And I also have here, we can never say we pitied someone unless we've tried to help them. Examples of God's mercy. Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times in Jesus' hour of need. But after his resurrection, in John 21:15, Jesus extends his mercy and asks Peter to feed his lambs. So there's an example of God's mercy towards humans. One of the best ones, if you want to read along, I just decided to read this whole thing because it's a good story and I can't really paraphrase, but Acts 22, 3 through 16, if you want to look that up. Acts 22, 3 through 16. It's about Saul and what he did. There, he says, I am indeed a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, taught according to the strictness of our father's law, and was zealous towards God, as you are all today. I persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also whom I also received letters to brethren. As also the high priest bears me witness, and all of the council of the elders, from whom I also received letters to the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring in chains even those who were there to Jerusalem to be punished. Now it happened, as I journeyed and came near Damascus at about noon, suddenly a great light from heaven shone around me, and I fell to the ground and heard the voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? So I answered, Who are you, Lord? And he said to me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. And those who were with me indeed saw the light and were afraid, but they did not hear the voice of him who spoke to me. So I said, What shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, Arise and go to Damascus, and there you will be told all the things which are appointed for you to do. And since I could not see the glory of that light, being led by the hand of those who were with me, I came to Damascus. Then a certain Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good testimony with all the Jews who dwelt there, came to me, and he stood and he said to me, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And that same hour I looked up at him, and then he said, The God of our fathers has chosen you, that you should know his will, and see the just one, and hear the voice of his mouth. For you will be his witness to all men that you have been seen and heard. And now, why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord. God didn't give up on Saul. He tracked him down, gave him a vision, and told him what to do. And Saul went from being one of the greatest enemies of the church to Paul, one of the greatest saints. So those are two solid examples of how God has mercy for men that are totally against him. So that should be the way we think. We need to have mercy on people, even if their problems are their own causing. We still need to try to help them.
That was in Stan's lesson this morning, the Good Samaritan.
Right.
He said, who was his neighbor, one that showed mercy or compassion? Told him to go and do likewise.
That's why Stan's a preacher. He has all the good stuff in his sermons. It also, as far as mercy goes, Matthew 7:2, the Sermon on the Mount. For with what judgment do you judge? You will be judged. And the important part here is, and with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. That right there tells us if we are merciful, God will be merciful to us. The next one is good fruits. Good fruits are wisdom that can be seen by its results. This is where the lives we live bear good fruits to us, and others see that. People can see how our lives are better because we follow God, and that's the example that hopefully they see, and maybe they'll follow along. Without partiality, which God is not prejudiced. God doesn't respect people based on their race, their class, their religion, their nationality or their ethnic background. But when we reflect the wisdom that rules in heaven, we reflect without partiality. So I guess that's a good example of why we shouldn't be prejudiced against other people, because God's not. James says that in that verse that one of the main points is without partiality. And that was touched on in the first, I think the first chapter, was it, when Andy did that? Was that in part of the partiality? Huh? Yeah, I think so. Well, I can't exactly remember. And the last one is without hypocrisy, which is pretending to be something we are not. when we act in our own character, we are without hypocrisy, and that is God's wisdom. And our character should be, and have God in our hearts. These last 2 points, without partiality and without hypocrisy, these are the traits of real people, real authentic people who are God's people. Real wisdom from above produces authentic people. Not people who live double lives, people who are real and authentic. And I think most of us are that way here, which, it's one of the reasons I like to be at church. I'm around real, authentic people, not people of the world who tell you one thing and then later on tell you something else. You all know those people. And verse 18, now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. The result of heavenly wisdom is like fruit that a wise person casts all around in life. Like I said before, people see that. When you walk around with heavenly wisdom, people see that in your life and the things you do. If you're pure and peaceable and gentle, willing to yield and full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Is there anybody here like that? Does anybody have all those characteristics in them? I don't think so. We'd like to, we'd try, but who did? Who had all those characteristics? All right. And when Christ was walking the earth, was he alone? Did he walk alone? Well, he had lots of followers everywhere he went. That's true, but for the most part, once people got to know him and saw how he lived and all his characteristics were godly and everything, they wanted to be around him. And there's only one way to have all these traits. How would that be? The same way as it goes back to the first part of the chapter, the taming of the tongue. We have to have God in our hearts. And that's the only way we're going to get all of those characteristics to come through. Yes? Right. Just so you can hear this online, April's saying that wisdom comes over years of experience, of learning, and studying. And I think you sow the fruits, they come out everywhere. They're the fruits that are of this life, That's right. You have to nurture it like a... Nope, nothing. I think I said this last week. When you want to change yourself, there's probably people that can just flip a switch and be a better person. But it takes me a long time to change myself. I have to try to change myself for a day. Try to make it through a day the way I want to be. And then maybe I can make it through a couple more days in a week. And that's just the way I kind of evolve, I guess, over time into a better person. So, maybe I can go for like 2 months without yelling at anybody in traffic. I know, but it's a learned skill. And not honking my horn. I keep seeing these ads for these truck horns I can put on my car. I'm like, oh man, I should buy those. But like, no, that wouldn't be nice to be using those all the time, because I would if I had something like that. Anything else? I'm pretty much covered all my info on this. I know. That's why I don't get them. I can't.
chapter of James kind of outlines the next 4 chapters, because the things we're going back and talking about now were roughly outlined in that first chapter. But if you take the book of James, it's addressed to the 12 tribes, and I think Andy and I both kind of laid out, these are different various churches in various places. And a lot of the things we're talking about and James talking about in this book are then addressed by Paul and Peter in their specific letters to Corinth and Ephesus, because they talk about specifically these things. And I kind of believe God in his infinite wisdom maybe was laying the groundwork in this book for the things that would then come later targeted to the individual churches. Because you look at the things we're studying here, and you can go to point to all these.
Can they hear that online?
And so it really, and we don't always look at it that way. We don't look at James as written before these other books. We look at it nearly at the end, because that's the way it's lined up in our Bible. But when you sometimes step back and look at it that way, James is laying the groundwork for a lot of these other books that are written to targeted specific churches.
If you're online there and you couldn't hear that, Ken Weinhardt was making some good points of how the book of James was written that basically set the framework for a lot of other books in the Bible that came after it, even though it's not the first one in the New Testament. Is that about? He said a lot more, but I can't repeat it all because my memory's not that good. That's all I have. I appreciate you all listening to me and giving me the opportunity to teach this part of this chapter of James. And maybe someday I can do it again. That's all I have. Anybody else? Nope. Thank you.